Hey guys, it's Matt here, and welcome to another episode of Matt Rants. So, I hope you guys had a nice Easter Sunday, or a nice Passover this past weekend, or whatever it is you celebrate or don't celebrate. I hope you still had a fun weekend regardless. So, today we're going to be talking about the topic of whether or not you should buy or sell retro games at Gamestop. Now, I think this is going to be a rather quick Matt Rants episode. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't really going to be shocked by my opinion. But at the end of the day, I have to say though, you can do whatever you want to do. You can have fun, whatever way you want to have fun. If you want to sell and buy, retro games over at GameStop, you can. But I'm kind of going with a no on this topic for either one, and I'll give you a few points as to why. So the first is, should I sell retro games at GameStop? Well, here's the thing. So selling games in general, retro games, is kind of difficult because, in my opinion, you never really know what the market is asking for and what the prices are going to be. Because yes, you can say, well, I have this price charting app or this price charting website, and this is what it's saying that the item is going for. But I would argue that a few recent sales could technically, in my opinion anyway, and to be fair, I don't really use these websites, so if any of you guys want to correct me, you can talk to me about it in the comments below. But looking at some of these price charting websites, the way I see it is a few purchases out of the norm could potentially change what price something is going for, even if they use things that aren't just eBay to kind of look into what the price for a game should be. So selling things online can be a little bit difficult because you might think, oh, but people like this game, so I'm going to sell this game for $20. But really, people are realistically buying it for only $1 or $5. And of course, selling things online, I've talked to you guys before about why retro video game prices are so high. I did that an episode ago or 2 episodes ago of Matt Rants. And so in that one, I was talking about how there's eBay fees and there's PayPal fees and there's shipping. So all this different stuff that at the end of the day will reduce your profit margin. So when it comes to reselling things, obviously all of us know the jokes at GameStop, and they're not even really jokes, honestly. I remember a guy, family friend, who years ago basically gave, I think, all of his PS1 games, and all of his PS1 games may have been like 30 games or 20 games, and he was able to get one PS2 game, and I'm pretty sure he still had to put an additional $10 in on that. So it hurt. I don't think it was even like a PS2, just a PS2 game. So that hurts. I think even at the time I looked at him and I was like, dude, and he was like, I know, but I didn't need them, right? Even though PS2 backwards compatible, he wanted to get this new game, and we were young at the time. I think we were maybe 13, 14, but even then I looked at him, I was like, that's a raw deal. And he was like, it was not a good deal. But still, the point is that when you look at selling your stuff to GameStop, of course, and look, at the end of the day, we have to understand and we have to admit that they're a company, right? They're not here for charity. So they are going to give you, some deals that might not seem the best, but, it really depends on how much they're going to sell an item for. Although at the same time, though, we do have to admit that, their used market is where they really make their bread and butter. So when you bring in a game and they're not giving you good trade-in credit for it, that is a little problematic. And that's kind of why people have been moving over, not just selling things online and at swap meets and at cons and stuff like that, but going to mom and pop stores and trying to get a good deal that way. So, while GameStop is a company, I have to admit, at the same time, I do understand why some of their, trade-in credit rather, is so low, right? So, but still, when it comes to selling, I would still say no. You probably shouldn't bring in your high-priced games or even your moderately priced games over to GameStop, unless you're really just trying to unload these different things and you don't have any, maybe you don't have any local mom and pop retro game shops, right? So you want to do that? Okay, fine. I get it. Right, I understand. But personally, I would suggest no there. And I think that one is kind of a much more of a no duh, so I don't really have to go too in depth on that. But now going into, should you buy from GameStop? Should you be buying your retro games from GameStop? Now that is very interesting, because you would think that even though this is a corporation, which, I just mentioned earlier, they're going to try to give you lower trade-in credit so that they can increase the price of these games and actually maximize profit. At the same time, you think, this is a company who's screening these games, who's looking at these games. I mean, GameStop has made so many different videos talking about their process and showing factories and these workers in lab coats that strangely look like background actors, but who clearly aren't, of course. No, they're clearly, what was it, GameStop, I forgot what they called them. I feel like the word engineer was used, but I don't actually want to make fun of them if it wasn't. So, but the point is that they tried to state that, hey, we're actually opening up these cartridges, we're making sure that they're not fake, we're making sure that they're real, we're making sure that the games play, and they were trying to assure you of that before actually starting the retro game initiative that they did, I think it was a few years back at this point. So GameStop, they did say that, right? And you would think, because they're a company, they're not going to want to sell you fakes and bootlegs. And I know, I understand people putting down corporations and shitting on corporations. And I'm not saying that I'm going to wave a flag saying, like, I'm the best friend of all the corporations. But at the same time, we do have to acknowledge and we have to understand that no company wants to sell you bootleg merchandise, right? No company wants to be caught, because even though yes, Nintendo isn't making money off of these cartridges anymore, still at the same time, the words GameStop sells repro or bootleg copy of Earthbound, that's technically copyright infringement. And GameStop does not want to be caught in any of that, because at any point, with all the money that Nintendo is making, I would imagine, through other avenues, and I actually don't have the data in front of me. I don't know if they make a lot of money through, Switch sales and stuff like that, through brick and mortar GameStops. But at the same time, any company that feels like their copyright is being infringed, they could pull out of GameStop if they wanted to, if they felt like they were being screwed over, even though, yes, at the end of the day, it's, they're not getting money off these cartridges anymore. That still doesn't mean that it's okay and that Nintendo's giving you a nice firm handshake if you're just creating Super Mario repros or Earthbound repros or any repro of a Nintendo IP. Even if the IP isn't on their 3DS store or something like that, or their Wii U store, even if it's not on one of those e-stores, Nintendo isn't still sitting back going, we're not making money. You can bootleg it. No, they're not. They're not really fans of that, right? As I'm sure some of you guys know, with them taking down some, some fan hacks, some ROM hacks of different Pokemon games and stuff like that. So when it comes to GameStop kind of trying to assure us, hey, we're selling real games here, we're checking them out, we're making sure that that they work, you would think that even though they're trying to maximize profits, they would check the games beforehand, and they said it. So at first glance, you think, well, what could go wrong here? All you have to do is just get one of those small screwdrivers. You guys have seen me use them, the 3.8 millimeter or the the 4.8 millimeter. I keep on 4.6, I think. So you've seen me get them, is the point, and I've used them on different TG tutorials episodes. So you've seen me use them. So you think, it's not that hard. If Matt can do it, and sure, I'm only doing it for a few different cartridges, one every time I do either a What's in a Cart episode, or if I show you guys how to do something cool with TG tutorials. Sure, I'm only one guy doing one small short form video, right? But you would think a company, corporation, they're going to get a fair amount of people that when they get these trade-ins from people, just, people going, I just want to give in this game, I don't care, or people trying to test out the system and see how much money they can get off of certain games. So you would think that GameStop would hire at least a few people, because I couldn't imagine how many games GameStop is actually getting in when it comes to old retro titles, because sure, not everyone knows about their local mom and pop shop, knows about, let me put this on eBay or Amazon or something like that. Not everyone does that, but I would imagine not many people who would be stopping into a GameStop would be the ones to trade in their entire collection to the GameStop, unless of course, again, no local mom and pop shop, right? But still, I would imagine they'd have at least a fair amount of people on staff to look over these games and make sure they're not repros. And sadly, we've noticed through different YouTube videos, from different articles of people talking about their experiences, that isn't always the case. Now, At the same time, though, I would like to admit that we don't know. I would love for GameStop to release their numbers of sales, because I know to some people it might seem petty, or it might seem weird, or it might seem just awkward in a way for GameStop to try to say, oh yeah, well, even though a few of these are bootleg, because technically they're acknowledging the problem, which means that they're acknowledging that they've committed some kind of copyright infringement in some way or another. But the point is that if they acknowledge, like, hey, some of these were problematic, well, look at how many we've sold that weren't, well, then at the same time, I would come out and say to you guys, hey, 3 of them were bootleg, or 5 of them were bootleg, but they've sold upwards of 10,000, which isn't that bad. But of course, when it comes to a corporation, like, okay, if I'm selling you a game personally, Matt Marrero, not of those guys play, or anything like that, just Matt Marrero selling you one game, right? And I didn't open it up. First off, I don't know why I wouldn't. That would be dumb of me, but I'm just one person. And if I'm working with hundreds of thousands of games, like, you guys are just sending me games to try to resell, right? You guys are like, we really enjoy your work and I don't want this game, right? If a repro falls into my lap and I don't know about it, I'm one guy. Right. If I try to hire other people and bring on the people that have worked, on those guys' play to try to open up these cartridges, then it's more of us. But right now, just assuming that it's me, I'm just one guy. I'm not a corporation that is worth a lot of money, who hires a lot of people and opens up a lot of stores. Basically, you look at GameStop, how many stores they opened. Yes, they closed a lot fairly recently, but they seem like they were the Starbucks of video games, right? So when we looked at how many stores they had open, you would think, oh, okay, so they're really vetting these games. So again, technically you would say that they are, even though there are only a few stories. But at the same time, though, according to one of the stories, which this now gets a little awkward, or a little problematic. One of the stories, I believe it was a Darkwing Duck that was reproed. Right, the person tested it out, and either I think it might have been a football game, or actually no, I'm sorry. Yes, it was a Darkwing Duck. There is a Darkwing Duck story. This was actually for Chrono Trigger. So Chrono Trigger was reproed, and it was actually a football game. So it actually might have been a repro, which might have been a board swap. So it was a board swap, and when the person plugged in the game, they saw that it was not Chrono Trigger, it was this football game. So they said to GameStop, hey, here is the issue. The issue is, this is not the real game. I would like to, get my money back. And GameStop, they're corporate. They have to say, send the game back, because that's kind of what they have to do. A lot of different, they don't want you to, even if they see and they can verify that, oh, you took a picture of the game with the thing, still they want to make sure that you're serious in your claim. And to do that, you have to send the game back, right? Even if it's a repro, or even if it's a board swap or whatever. So the game was given back. And then another completely unrelated story after that, like, people who don't know each other is what I'm getting at here, is that apparently this person said, oh, I bought a Chrono Trigger from GameStop and it's the same football game, which leads us to believe that GameStop got this game in, I guess maybe didn't believe the customer, or didn't care, or maybe both, and they just sent out the game again. And in that case, you got to ask yourself, can you trust GameStop? Right? Can you trust? Because this isn't just some mom and pop place. You can go, oh, it's just a few people working there, and they're trying their hardest, but there's a lot of inventory and stuff like that, and mistakes happen, right? Mistakes can still happen, of course, on a corporate level, but you have this giant, massive corporation that should, at the very least, be opening up the games, be knowing what year the game came out. I mean, if the football game was from the same year, I get it, but at the same time, you should also there's a fair amount of Super Nintendos or Super Nintendo clones out there that you could easily have, they could easily bought one for each location, not the GameStop location itself. Like, I don't expect, to be very fair here, I don't expect every single GameStop that exists in America to test on site. I don't think that should happen at all. I don't believe it should happen, and I would get that it wouldn't happen there, right? I'm talking about when it gets sent to whatever big giant factory that they, end up packaging all their stuff, the giant warehouse, before they send everything out. I would hope that they have a Super Nintendo there on file to just, Super Nintendo on file. Just pull a giant Super Nintendo out of a file cabinet. Just get the mini, it'll fit. No, it won't. And you plug in the Super Nintendo game, and then you play it, and then you're like, oh, this isn't the real Super Nintendo game. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll keep this to the side, and if we get, a broken football game of the same kind, we'll take it anyway. And if we can somehow replace the board in some way, all right, then that's what you do, right? But to accept it, and then again, like I don't blame the GameStop employee for accepting it on the spot. I don't expect them to have every single console that they take on the spot to test, right? But I do blame GameStop as a whole, at the upper tiers, at the upper levels, because of the fact that you can't accept all these games in, especially when you're such a large corporation, and then get fakes by you, send out the fakes, and then send out the fake again to someone completely different. Now, did they refund this person's money, right? The person who got this fake Chrono Trigger and some of these other stories about fakes. Did they refund this person's money? They did. Fully refunded it. I don't think they even had to pay for shipping. They sent it out, but I think they gave them the money for shipping as well. So I don't think shipping, or they could have given it to the local GameStop, something along those lines. So there was no need to say, hey, GameStop, not giving this person's money back. No, they did, right? But at the same time, you're purchasing this game from GameStop because your thought is, I don't want to be inconvenienced by buying a game online that it could not work. It could be bootleg / repro. It could be a different board entirely, right? So, you can buy a game online, and heck, if I've never experienced this personally, but you could buy something online and then pay for the item, and then the item never ships to you. And even if you get your money back from it and everything works out okay, maybe the seller thought they had 2 of the item, really they only had 1, and then they sold it to someone else. Some crazy shenanigans like that, right? Even if that happens, at the end of the day, even if you get your money back from that, you feel like you've wasted your time. So you think, because it's not eBay's fault necessarily, it's on that seller. But who do you blame here at GameStop other than GameStop? Like, GameStop it's not like eBay here, where eBay isn't technically paying these different sellers to be on eBay, right? They're just taking a cut after the fact. Here, GameStop isn't like, we're just taking a small cut after the fact. No, GameStop is hiring these employees. They're teaching these employees what to do. They should be. And at the end of the day, it's not like, I understand if an employee isn't going to have 2 copies of, Flintstones Dinosaur Peak in front of them to see if one sticker looks like a repro, right? As long as it doesn't say like repro on it, I understand that a GameStop employee isn't going to have that. But what I do believe is that when that goes to the old factory, the old warehouse, it should be opened up, and then they should see, Nintendo is nowhere on this board at all. Taito is nowhere on this board at all. There isn't even a year on here. It says Sharp on one of these, these chips, right? Which, not saying no official games ever use Sharp, but still, the point is that you have to have these employees trained to then make us feel secure, and then have me go, GameStop has never had an issue with that, and I think you should buy your retro games at GameStop, because if you do, then you'll have that nice old seal of quality, that GameStop seal of quality. But from what we're seeing here, there is not a GameStop seal of quality. Now, yes, arguably you're getting more people who are getting games without issues than that are, right? But at the same time, is everyone opening up their games, right? And frankly, if you're listening to this video and you bought a game from GameStop and you haven't opened it up, if it's somewhat easy to open up, I would suggest you do. Check it out. Talk to me about it in the comments below. Talk to people about it if you have a YouTube channel. If you don't have a YouTube channel, just post about it on social media. And because I just want people to see and be informed and know, like, wait, is this retro game that I bought, is it real? Because some of these retro games that you're buying on there, yes, some of them are like small markups, that you're going to see usually, like, I forgot what the exact numbers are, but like paying like 25 for like Castlevania or 25 for Metroid, you're going to get those markups. Although to be fair, in some cases, those aren't too high up, but for something, let's say like Super Mario's Duck Hunt, if you're going to pay 25, that's a markup. right? So for some of these, yeah, they're going to be marked up, but other ones, when you're paying, I forgot how much it is for a Chrono Trigger or an Earthbound, but it's a lot of money, right? And you're not getting much money trading it in. I think it's 20, but I'm pretty sure they're charging like 200. And this is a reputable business trying to charge you 200 for an Earthbound that might not be real. In that case, I might as well just pay 200 for an Earthbound on eBay that a guy actually opened up, and hopefully it's not a stock photo to be fair, but so a guy or a girl or a person in general just opened up this cartridge, and I can see, oh hey, that's a real board. Excellent. I feel the need to pay $200 for this game. I guess I'll just pay for it on eBay. Instead of either going to your local GameStop or going on their website and seeing a stock photo and just praying for the best. Right. And that's, I think, another point I should bring up, too. Let's say you get the real game. Right. Let's say I'm full of baloney. And who cares what I think about, the whole is it real or not. Right. Who cares? Who cares if I think that? You know what? The game will always be real according to, let's say, your logic. Right. So that's what you're bringing to the table. The game will always be real. Matt, stop freaking out. Don't worry about it. Well, let's say the game is always real. No matter what game you buy, it's always real. How does the sticker look? Now, personally, I don't care about how a sticker or how a box looks or a manual looks or something like that. So I don't really care how any of them look. I really don't care how these labels look. But I also, at the same time, would pay a lot less for an item with a damaged label. And I'm okay with that. You've seen some of the unboxings that we've done on the channel. You're going to see some more in the near future. These boxes are not in any way in pristine condition. And that's cool, right? I have zero issue with that. But I'm not going to pay $200. I wouldn't pay $200 for an Earthbound no matter what, to be fair. But if I was even thinking about it, I would not pay for one with a ripped label. Also, what if GameStop is just saying, you know what, we're not going to take them with ripped labels. Too bad. You've lost out on a pretty good deal, GameStop. Or you take one with a ripped label, and this is just pure conjecture, by the way, pure conjecture, but you take one with a ripped label and they go, you know what, let's give it a label upgrade. Why does it matter, right? Because they're not coming into this with the idea of, oh, if you give it a label upgrade, the price is going to go down in value. And there's nothing wrong with it. It just is, right? You're not going to reconstruct, let's say, an Action Comics #1 cover, right? Or Amazing Fantasy was 14. You're not going to reconstruct that cover and then tell me it's still worth millions of dollars, because it's not. It's not worth millions of dollars when you've made a new version of it, right? When you try to reconstruct it and it isn't the original authentic. Now, again, do I care? No, I would buy one that's reconstructed, right? I wouldn't care, but I also would not be spending millions of dollars on it. So you're putting a repro label on there, or you're buying them with repro labels, or they're not even repro labels. They're just, ripped right in half. Just straight up in half. I only see half. I'm buying a copy of Bound or Earth on the Super Nintendo. Then I'm not going to pay $200 for that. I would pay less than half. And even then, I'd feel weird about buying a loose cart. But you know what? That's also, speaking of loose carts. Are we getting them loose cart? Are we getting them with manuals? Are we getting them just with boxes? In any way, shape, or form? Even a deformed box? Is the box going to be sun faded? Because again, I would buy a sun faded box, but the price should match accordingly. So that's the big issue with GameStop as well. You can't see the way the game looks. If you're buying it online, it's just a stock photo. And if you're buying it through their store, like in person, they'll take your order, but then they'll ship it to your house. So they'll ask for your address. They'll ask, GameStop membership, all that stuff, credit card info, whatever, you're paying with. And so that's the biggest issue right there. And I think that's a huge red flag. Even if you are under the assumption that the game will always be real, Matt, don't worry about it. I know it's a Matt rants, but Matt, stop ranting. At the end of the day, you don't know if the game is going to look good, which, yeah, it affects the price. And that's a good thing, right? I'm not saying we should be sitting here only buying things in pristine condition, things that are factory sealed. In no way do I have a problem, buying something that's been used for years, the last 30, 20, 10 years. I don't care. but I'm not going to pay exorbitant amounts for it if it's just some, loose cart that's cracked or something like that. So as we're wrapping this rant up, at the end of the day, should you buy and sell retro video games at GameStop? Sell, unless you're really trying to unload a lot of items and you have no other option. I would say don't sell your retro items at GameStop, but again, that's really up to you. And when it comes to buying stuff at GameStop, personally, I wouldn't. I'm not a big fan of the markup personally, but because even if all the games were real, I think the markup can be a little bit ridiculous when I don't know what I'm actually getting. And just the idea that the games could not be real, right? There's a chance they could be repros or fakes or board swaps. And with all these different stories that have come in, not only would I not know before purchasing it, GameStop might not even know before sending it out. And that right there to me shows that I'd rather just go to, even though I don't really go to a lot of conventions, I'd rather go to a convention and buy a game there because I can go back to that seller either the day of, or can even ask them to open it up themselves, and any reputable seller will open up the copy of whatever game it is themselves. They'll either let you do it, or they'll be like, okay, look, just give me the screwdriver, or they'll pull a screwdriver out of their pocket or a toolkit or something, and they'll open it up themselves. So to sit there and think, oh, well, don't worry, this company would never, I know that sounds funny to say the company would never betray me, but the idea that, the company isn't going to sell things that are illegal because, a company doesn't want to, reputable companies don't want to do that. You would think that here, but sadly, when it comes to retro video games, if you don't know what you're doing when you're selling them, or you don't have the manpower to, or the person power to actually look into these games before sending them out, you might have repros on your hands and you don't even know. So it's really frustrating, to hear about this, to have it happen. So personally, I would not buy it. I would suggest that you don't buy. And nothing against GameStop personally. I've known some great people that have worked at, different GameStops. They've all left GameStop, but that's interesting. But they've all worked at GameStop, and they're not bad people for it. In no way am I putting down GameStop as a whole or any person from GameStop, but I do think that their retro games initiative isn't doing as well as any of us really would have liked in terms of the screening process. So personally, I would suggest you don't buy it. But you know what? Do you actually buy them from GameStop? Do you actually buy your retro games from GameStop? Do you sell retro games at GameStop? Please, if you do, then comment below, because I want to hear about your stories, your experiences. I want to hear what stuff you've gone through. She can share pictures, stories, anything like that below. Please remember to like and subscribe if you liked the video. And if you didn't like the video, you could still like and subscribe anyway. You could like and subscribe regardless about how you feel. It's okay. You can do it. Really. You can click that like button. You can click that subscribe button. It doesn't matter how you feel about the video in question. Also, you can even give money to our Patreon. Even if you despise us and you despise me bringing up the Patreon, give me your money in hatred. But depending on what tier you give to, you're not just giving me money willy-nilly as a tip jar. You could, though. I'd love, if you guys do, but you don't have to do that, right? Depending on what tier you give to, you can actually become a part of the show. We can give you guys shout-outs. You can actually suggest Matt Rants ideas. You can actually suggest Matt's Rants ideas in the comments below, and even tweet me as well at Those Guys Radio. You could do that already, right? But at the same time, if you wanted to come out quicker and faster, kind of like an express line, a bit like an express lane, rather, you can actually send, all that, depending on what tier you give to, over at our Patreon, which is patreon.com/TG Productions. And it also will be linked below as well, along with our merch page, where you can buy different t-shirts and fun stuff like that, as well as our eBay page, which, yes, I do sell some stuff on eBay as well, stuff for my collection, video games, wrestling merch, and other, cool stuff as well, just like t-shirts, as well. And again, as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. You can follow all of our releases, not just here, but over at our Facebook, which is facebook.com/thoseguysontheradio, or our main website, which is tgproduction.net. And I mentioned our Twitter earlier, which is @thoseguysradio. Thank you all so much. Love you guys. Take care and see ya.